What is up, guys, and in this video I'll be showing you guys exactly how you do long exposure photography, or taking those photos with the streaks that you'll see, if you want to put it in layman's term, on your Nikon Z50. And if you haven't watched yet, check out my first video of how I show you how you do long exposure photography on a Nikon. Super simple. Go watch that first, but I will show you guys exactly now how you do it on a Nikon Z50, a mirrorless camera. Same principles apply. And if you watch till the very end of this video, I will show you what I actually put this to on an in-field nighttime long exposure photography on my Nikon Z50. So make sure you smash that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe and notification bell so you get more future videos from me. My name is Peter, and let's get straight into this, guys. So one of the very first easiest or artsy-fartsy type of long exposure photography is that you want to understand what exactly it is. So when you put your camera on long exposure mode, or you're essentially having your shutter wide open for longer than 1/50th, this is what's happening. If you want to put it into a layman's term, right? So you have your shutter here, and usually if you have it 1/2000, it's like whoop, like that, and it takes a picture. 1/50, it's like that. But if you have your shutter at, let's say, 3 seconds, it's going to open and then close for 3 seconds. So it's going to try to capture all the information that it can. So anything that moves is going to have that sort of that dragged or that blur type of photo looking effect. And no, you can't get this in video, but it is primarily focuses on photos. So think about it. So everything that stays or stills is as is, but something that moves, like light or a car or a person, it's going to be blurry. The longer you have it open, the more blurry whatever is moving is going to be moving. So the simplest way that I can show you is, you'll probably see a lot of those artsy photos where the person is there, right, with their, like, it's just a normal portrait, but their head is like blurred. And how you do that is, I'm going to show you right now. All you need to do is move your head left, 1, 2, 1, 2, then look in the middle, depending on how many seconds your shutter is open for. So I'm going to show you with my D50-200, guys. So right now you can see my shutter is at 1/50. But in order to get your long exposure photography, what you want is that shutter to have the little 2 signs, which represents seconds. So I'm going to do that right now. You know, one of the things is you can't be recording if your Z50 is on video mode. You can't keep cranking the shutter. The lowest it will go, as you can see, is 1/125. You can do this in aperture, but I like to do it in fully manual mode so you can control everything. But as you can see, if you keep cranking down the shutter, 1/25 is the lowest as it will go, which is why this is long exposure is mainly for photos. So all you do now is, as you can see, as I'm slowly cranking down the shutter, it's actually going to 1/3, 1/2.5, and the minute that you start seeing these 2 dash marks, it's 1 second, 1.3. Now the shutter will be open for 2.5 seconds. I'm going to put on live view, turn down my ISO, and because there is lighting, it's going to take all of this light information, which is why long exposure is more ideal for nighttime situations. So what I'm going to do now is I will be actually turning down all my lights so I can take this long exposure photo, because long exposure actually allows your camera to take photos essentially in the dark. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my head left and right, and you'll see what I can actually get. Double checking that I'm at 2.5, so 2.5 seconds, turning off all my lights, and you can actually see the preview of how bright the light will be. So if that's the case, all you want to do, if it's too bright, is just to crank up the aperture, making sure that even more things will be in focus. So now, you're right there in frame, making sure you're in focus, half press, and then you hear the shutter, and then look at the camera. And that is how you create that artsy photo that you'll see right now. I'll show you guys. You can play around with how long the shutter's open. Right now I'm at 4 seconds. F14, maybe bump it down to F13. So I'm going to count So I know that the shutter is going to be open for 4 seconds. So 1, 1000, 2, 1000, 3, 1000. And that is the basics of how you actually do those type of like artsy headshots. Really simple. But now guys, I'll be actually taking you guys into the real world and doing this at night so you can get some better understanding of why you can do long exposure photography even with the Nikon. Even if it's a mirrorless crop body micro four thirds, long exposure is ideal for the night, because you're letting so much light information into your camera is that you can essentially take photos in the dark, like I said. So let's go, guys. So when it comes to doing night photography, first thing you gotta do for long exposures is you gotta obviously be in the night. The darker it is, the better. And the second thing you need when it comes to doing long exposure is you also need a tripod. And if you're wondering which one I'm using, I am using the Manfrotto Advanced Compact. And yes, if you ever wondered if any one of your cameras can shoot long exposure photography, you know that pretty much any camera that has long exposure, you can shoot long exposure photography. Any camera that lets your shutter speed go down past 1/50th, where it's open for like more than a second, you can do long exposure photography. So I'm just gonna find a dark spot to set this thing up, and we can get the show on the road, guys. So when it comes to the first thing to long exposure, the first thing you want to do on the Z50 is I'll be switching my camera to photo mode, and then my settings are at 3.5, 100 ISO, and then I'm going to keep cranking my shutter all the way down. I am on full manual, and I'll be shooting at leaving the shutter open for 4 seconds. Press it, and what's going to happen is the shutter is going to open for 4 seconds, and then as you can see, there are your light streaks, and that's pretty much the basics when it comes to long exposure photography. The only upside that you need to consider is making sure you have a tripod, as you can see, because the whole purpose or benefit of long exposure is you need to make sure everything is stable, because any movement will be captured on camera. Depending on where you are though, you do want to be careful if you are filming or taking long exposure at night with your fancy camera gear. So that's something you want to be aware of, and also to be wearing bright or reflective clothing so you don't get run over while you're carrying your camera. Because right now I'm currently just all by myself with my gear, looking like a crazy person. What I'm gonna do is there's this intersection here where there's a bunch of cars, and I'm gonna show you the differences between shooting at 1 second, 3 seconds, 6 and 8, or pretty much anything, the intervals between different types of exposures with your camera. And the whole point of long exposure is lets you take photos in the dark, it'll smooth out water, and if you ever wanted to capture like a great skyline, now you can. Right now I planted myself at this corner here at a pretty busy-ish intersection. The more movement, the better. And this is going to be me shooting at 2 seconds with my shutter. So that was the end of that video, because literally 10 minutes later, it is raining in Vancouver up in here. So the benefits of shooting a night photography or long exposure technically is it lets you shoot pretty much anything you want at night, knowing that if there's movement, it's going to be blurred. If there's any lights, it's going to be brighter, and it's overall going to create a smoother picture. And you can play around with your apertures, the ISO, and it all comes down to basic things when it comes to photography. So basic setting up how you take normal photos, like making sure you have framing and all that stuff. But yes, you can do long exposure on a Nikon. That's how you do it. That's how I do it. I'm not a pro at it. I just show y'all that you can do it. So my name's Peter. Like you already know, you're watching a Broke Visionary Collective. You want to help me, help you? Links are all in my description below. Check out the comments. My name's Peter. Let's join the Visionaries group. Link is description. It is our secret Facebook group where I help you help me, or something like that. So yeah, cheers guys.